This one's for the girl who don't feel like she's enough, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. This one's for the cool kid playing on the school team, crying to himself cause he never had the prom queen. Head full of wands, but they said it's just a pipe dream, yeah. This one's for the kids like me, they never had one day. The ladies always turn their cheek, but they ain't let the fat ones sing. This one's for the kids like me, kept working when they had nothing. When people try to take their dreams, they stuck it to them, please don't change. For the nerds.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Alex Cuesta Show. How's everybody doing out there on this Wednesday, April 30th, 2025, episode number 163? David, you're back this week. Hello.
Yes, I am back. I am getting things together over here.
You
just
never
making
have it
sure I
together. Don't lie. You have
No,
nothing together
no,
ever.
because I just woke up not too long ago and I had to do some stuff before I jumped on. So
You're a liar. You didn't do anything.
no,
Stop lying to the people.
I did a pequeño amount. But yeah, just getting some stuff together. I'm excited. I'm excited for today's show.
Yes, I am pumped for today's show as well. Before we get into the fun stuff, wherever you are watching from, please make sure you like, share, follow, subscribe, rate 5 stars, Spotify and iTunes. Spread this word of mouth, and make sure, wherever you're watching from, Facebook, X, Kick, YouTube, Rumble, please make sure to go and follow us over there. Spread this word of mouth. And if you're listening via podcast form, Spotify, iTunes, all that good stuff, 5 stars is the only rating you're allowed to give. If not, on the off weeks, I will send David after you. We will find you. We will track you. David has no particular set of skills, but he will try. He will try really hard.
Mr. Magoo my way through things.
He will Mr. Magoo. Yes, that's exactly what you'll do. So last week, while you were not here, I had the pleasure of having Lenore Skenazy on for 30 minutes. She's the president of the Electro organization, where it's really cool. If you and your kids don't have it in your school system, it's something that I highly recommend. Go back and listen to that show. Go on the website, and basically it's allowing kids to do more than you think they can do as a parent and start to build community, all that good stuff. So it was good. And then for an hour afterwards, I just kind of word vomited everything like I always do. So go ahead. And yeah, that was a great promo. But go listen to that and it'll be fun. But this week, we are going to have a blast because I'm pumped to have this individual on. Dave, we are continuing our trend of like every so often, like having a person in like TV, movie, like things like that realm. And this is one that is, an individual that I enjoy seeing his reviews and things like that. But let's bring him in. He is Christian Toto. He's an award-winning film critic and the host of Hollywood in Toto podcast. Christian, what's going on, man?
I love the Mr. Magoo reference. I'm all in.
Perfect. Yes, David, you did something good for our show.
Sometimes I do that. Very rarely.
You've done it again.
It is rare. So first, I want to start off saying what's up to Caveat Ty, saying you have all the heavy hitters. Christian Toto, I stay up to date on all of his episodes. So one of your fans is coming in, and Caveat is funny. Caveat found me, Christian. I don't know if you're on the Critic List app or not. Caveat found me over there.
Oh,
from hey, hold on, wait. Nate said that you didn't. David, we made it.
Yeah, I know.
We made it. We're getting shadow banned.
That's YouTube.
By YouTube.
Well, no, I'm not even going to say that. YouTube just doesn't like giving notifications to people. So
that's true. But we're going to listen. Don't all the cool kids claim it's a shadow ban? Isn't that what we're supposed to do? And we're supposed to
got to grift off of it. Yeah.
They hate us. Make sure you subscribe so they can find you and do that. Yeah, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to be those people. But we're going to get into the fun stuff. So, Christian, you are one of the movie critics that I know I like to follow. And there's you guys, I like to follow like G&G and that group of people about movies and TV and things like that. But you are someone that, we talked a little before and you like to say that, you keep it professional and things, but I feel like you take a risk with the way that you critique movies and the way things you're not afraid to say, especially
Mhm.
in the last 5-6 years. Um, how has it been being somebody who's not afraid to call things out for their nonsense?
I think for the most part, I'm treated well. The publicists steer things to me. But then again, I really haven't had a lot of big interviews with conventional stars in a while. Back in the day, I used to do the junkets. I'd fly out to LA
Yep.
and talk to all the big stars, the Brad Pitts of the world. Haven't been really given access to that lately. I often will talk to more right-leaning stars like a Dennis Quaid, a John Voight, Kevin Sorbo, people like that. And I love talking to them. It's an honor to speak to them, in part because they're fighting the good fight
Yes.
and just speaking out and being themselves and risking their careers just by saying, "Hey, I'm right of center." So it's been one of my biggest missions of the last few years is to fight for free speech, but also let people know there's a conservative blacklist out there. I mean,
Absolutely.
it's stunning that it exists. It's stunning that we all kind of know it. And it's also amazing that the mainstream media just won't really get upset about it. They just accept it, acknowledge it, and move on as if it's normal. And it couldn't be anything less than normal.
One of the guys I always like to point to is Vince Vaughn, right? Vince Vaughn was the funniest guy of a generation.
Just took
And
a photo with Trump recently.
he just took a photo. Well, here's the thing. Vince Vaughn doesn't give a shit anymore, right? Like, I think he's at the point where he knows. And, I think it's partially because Hollywood's a bunch of cowards to make movies that Vince Vaughn likes to do.
Hmm.
Is it kind of, in a way, like people as a coming out party when they go to do an interview with you, if they're not an open conservative yet, like, oh, they're Christians interviewing them, they might be a conservative. Like, once you finally get like Adam Sandler to come on the show and he can finally admit that he's a conservative because he's one of those closet conservatives, right? Like, is it kind of a thing where the industry kind of knows if they interview with you, okay, they're probably right leaning?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm sure I've lost a lot of opportunities for that very reason. And I've even some actors who are not political, who have been in faith-based films,
Yeah.
they don't go near me. So that actually bugs me because I think because I think I think the work that I do addresses their audience.
Yep.
By the way, Adam Sandler, I interviewed decades ago when he was just starting out. Couldn't have been nicer, but yeah, listen, everyone has whispers about Adam Sandler and what the way he leans.
He's
but
100%. You could tell. You could tell he is. You
Well,
could tell someone like Kevin James. You could tell they are. The thing is, it's like in the nicest way to put it, they don't talk about the dumb stuff. And basically, when you hear them, it's more logical and common sense,
Mhm.
right? So it kind of gives you a leaning that they're not emotional beings, and
Yeah.
that usually means that they lean more towards logic and conservatism, and that's kind of maybe they're not like hardcore, but they
Mhm.
definitely probably lean that way.
Well, I think what we've seen in the last maybe year is that some comedians who are not political, not overly right-leaning, going in that direction just for pragmatic purposes, like
Yeah.
the Tony Hinchcliffe's of the world, Joe Rogan,
Yep.
Dave Landau. These guys are not rock rib conservatives, but they can
No.
see what's happening in the culture, and they see one side of the aisle saying, "You can't tell this joke, you can't say this, we're going to get you," and the other side saying, "Just do what you want," So you can't help but lean in a certain direction at that point. So that's been interesting to watch. But listen, there have been interviews I've conducted where I will say off mic before the things get rolling, "Is it okay if I mention you're right of center? Are you comfortable with that?" I feel a little protective of them because I don't want to hurt their careers.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's, I mean, again, that's a shame as well. Listen, if you're George Clooney, you could scream to the rooftops that you're liberal,
Oh my
and you
god.
should be able to. That's
Yeah.
perfectly normal. And he could think the way he thinks, and he could be as hypocritical as humanly possible. But that's his right. But other actors should have this right as well. I've spoken to a lot of people, and often it's the people without significant power. They have to be quiet behind the scenes. They don't
Yep.
have, listen, if you're Vince Vaughn, you're Vince Vaughn.
Yeah.
You're a legend.
Yes.
And you get away with some stuff that maybe other people can. So I think that's a problem too.
It's funny because George Clooney is like the de facto leader of the Democrat Party right now. It's wild. Like, he's saying things and people are reporting on it from like freaking Politico. Like,
Yeah,
he's
it's
like the
weird.
leader. It's wild. But I have said for years, David can attest to this. If Matt Damon ever decides to run, he is a really good speaker. He's a moron politically, but he makes it sound like he knows what he's talking about. He has good counterpoints and statistics on his side when he debates people. So he's someone that if the Democrats ever got smart, and I'm not giving them any advice, but he's someone like you're looking for your Donald Trump, famous guy to thrust in there that everyone loves. Man, Matt Damon, imagine Matt Damon running in 2028. Like, he starts a campaign, and he would have him and AOC just tell AOC to shut the hell up and be a VP and just smile. Like they might be in good shape. So caveat ties real quick saying Jimmy Dore ain't no conservative. He's not a conservative, but he's put into the right camp because he's just willing to speak his mind, and he'll tell you he's not. Listen, Jimmy Dore is basically a socialist, like in so many ways he is, but he's just not a moron. He's willing to admit when he's wrong or when his side's wrong, and you can't do that. That's a cardinal no-no.
Yeah, I had Jimmy Dore on my show. I was very impressed by him.
Yeah.
And I disagree with a lot of his stuff, but he just seems like he doesn't care if he bucks the system. He doesn't care if he bucks his own party. And I think we need more of that. We need more honest brokers. You know, I get some heat sometimes for backing up Bill Maher. Listen, he's a rock rib liberal. He's going to vote against Trump, against the GOP almost every time, if not every time. But he's also willing to speak the truth. He's also willing to mock his own side. And you could say he's doing it for pragmatic purposes, that he's trying to fix his own party because they're falling off a cliff. But again, I give him credit because the Colberts and the Kimmels of the world, they don't go near that. So I think Maher deserves a lot of credit for that. He also reaches across the aisle and has great conversations with conservatives like Kid Rock. They seem like buddies, those two. Absolutely. And they couldn't be more different.
And with Bill Maher too, Bill Maher has kind of just been funny his whole career. I used to enjoy watching Bill Maher, even when he's making fun of Republicans. He does it in a funny way, and comedy is just meant to be funny in general. And, you know, it's crazy to think that we're just not allowed to go in that direction anymore. So I want to jump into some fun stuff here because you want to talk about people burning things down. Christian, why do actors and actresses enjoy destroying their movies? Now, like, it seems to be the fad of who can destroy their movie the quickest.
At least hurting them.
At least hurting it. So, like, the Fantastic Four. Fantastic Four had a shot, really. It had an interesting look.
Still think it does. I think it does a little bit, but
it's not. I think it might break even. I think Fantastic Four is going to break even at best right now. And I'd love to hear Christian's point, but you know, with the actor playing the Human Torch coming out and like, he's not going to be a womanizer. This one, it's like, come on, have you read a comic book? So, what is your opinion? You know, specifically Fantastic Four. And what is going on with all of these actors and actresses, you know, just not sitting there and just shutting up and letting their movie do its thing?
It's amazing because I've interviewed enough celebrities who know that part of the job is a lot of work. I remember years ago when Dwayne Johnson was doing publicity for Walking Tall. This was like 20 years ago. And I interviewed him, and I was like the last interview of the day. So he had interview after interview after interview. I'm sure it was exhausting. Even it's not physically exhausting. It's just tiring. Yeah. And he couldn't have been nicer, couldn't have been more high energy. But these stars put a lot of effort, a lot of travel, a lot of time into going to all these places, talking to all these outlets. The purpose is simple: promote your movie or TV show.
Yes.
Nothing could be more basic than that. And yet they keep putting their feet in their mouths. I don't have an explanation beyond that. The culture of Hollywood is so progressive, and that there's sort of an unwritten script that they need to follow, and they can't help themselves. So that's why Rachel Zegler insults the source material, Snow White.
What's crazy is you could see how uncomfortable Gal Gadot was in some of those interviews as Rachel saying, and and Gal Gadot probably agrees with 95% outside of the Free Palestine stuff. Yeah. I think she's on board with 95% of what Rachel Zegler was talking about.
That's a pretty big one, though.
More than likely a progressive. Well, I mean, considering Gal Gadot is an Israeli and she was in the Israeli military, but it's like, you could just see how uncomfortable Gal Gadot was because, you know, even when she was promoting, I forget the name of the second Wonder Woman. What was it, 1984?
1984, yeah.
Some crap like that. But it was like, even when she was promoting that movie was as woke as it's going to get. Girl boss, crap looking movie. Yeah. She was not out there going, this is going to stick it to all the men because I'm Wonder Woman in every way. Like, she was trying to promote the movie as the best superhero movie you're going to see.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's the difference, like you said, between a professional like Gal Gadot, who's going to keep her mouth shut, and even being a former member of the IDF, isn't going out there and going, every Palestinian needs to burn. It's like, no, she's just like, the war is a tragedy. We need to end it. My Israeli people are dying. Like, that's it. Yeah. It's like, it's crazy.
You look at Hollywood, you have two examples. You have Rachel Zegler, who just helped her project implode. And listen, there are other factors there for sure.
Yeah.
Then you have like a Tom Cruise who jumped on a couch back in the day, was getting very argumentative about treatments for mental illness and things like that. And then he learned, and he figured it out. And all Tom Cruise says today is, thank you for coming to my movie.
Yes.
I worked so hard on it.
Yep.
I just can't wait for you to see it in theaters. Thank you for making my dreams come true.
And we know he's
Bingo.
fucking crazy.
Yeah. And he
Because we
says
know
that
he's a
while
crazy
jumping out of a plane,
Scientologist.
too. At least he's jumping out of a plane too while he says it, so there's something
That's
going on.
right.
But,
You
But
don't
we
have
know
to
he's
do
a
that, but
crazy
that's an added bonus.
Scientologist. Like
Yeah.
he's a psycho too. We know that. Like Scientology is pretty nuts. Christian, I don't know if you're a Scientologist. I don't want to offend you, but but like people acknowledge that they think Scientology is a little crazy. He doesn't put in his Scientology at all, unless he's like subliminally throwing it in every movie, and we're just becoming one slowly. Like
I kind of doubt it. I do want to bring up the specific quotes from the Entertainment Weekly article.
yeah.
That's basically what this is from. This one
Yes,
big
yes.
article. Right here, him talking about his character as Johnny Storm. He's a man that leads with a lot of bravado, which can be an affront sometimes, but also he's funny, and that's fine.
that's true.
Myself and Marvel Studios boss Kevin Feige were speaking about previous iterations of him and where we are culturally, and everyone knows that this becomes an issue once you say that. He was branded as this womanizing, devil-may-care guy, but is that sexy these days? I don't think so. This version of Johnny is less callous with other people's feelings, and hopefully there's a self-awareness about what's driving that attention-seeking behavior. And this is generally the quote, one of the quotes that got a lot of doubt around this movie about whether they're going to play these characters correctly.
Yeah, listen, you can be a womanizer and be a character. You can be flawed and be a character. I think the great team at Film Threat talked about this, how maybe he starts out like a womanizer. Maybe he starts out with disposable girlfriends. And then through the arc of the movies, he grows a bit and becomes a little bit more human and more, and more aware. I mean, wouldn't that be interesting?
Yeah.
That's what they said, and I couldn't agree more. Listen, it's also a film, and there's going to be some chronological tweaks because they're going to be in the Avengers Doomsday too.
Yes.
But the movie's set in the 60s.
Yes.
So why would you make characters who feel and sound like they're from 2025? That makes no sense either. Listen, we don't want James Bond today swatting the fanny of an actress on the movie. I mean, I think we're all okay with that maybe being left in the past. But you do have to be of the past and of the moment, and you can have flawed characters. And if he's a womanizer, so what? That's not the end of the world. And if you're a woman in his orbit, you could say, "Oh, you're a womanizer. I don't want anything to do with you." Or you could say, "You know what? I want a nice night on the town. I'm going to go out with Johnny Storm." I mean, it's this hand-wringing, it's this nonsense. And the bottom line about all this, though, is that often the actors say these things, and then when you watch the movie, there's no trace of it.
Yeah.
It's in their head.
Yep.
And the thing is, too, it's like you see with the original Johnny Storm, even with Chris Evans' character from movie 1 to movie 2. Movie 1, he was that playboy. He was that showman. And then as the job got more serious, as things got more serious, as he watched his sister have a legitimate relationship with his brother-in-law, like all those things, he did start to grow to the point where, he poked fun at Ben Grimm, but he was genuinely happy when Ben found a person to be with. And then you could see he was less of that bravado character as he started to take the job more seriously. Like there's growth there. Now,
it's really funny that you're going back to those Fantastic Four movies that we can say are not very good.
The first one was just fine. The second one,
they were whatever.
The first one was good. I like the first one.
But you can go back to those and say, man, back then we had this thing called character development. Like it's something that is lost in today's art. But I also want to point out, but this quote from Vanessa Kirby, because it was both her and the Johnny Storm quote that kind of got people up in arms. Also, I know it's not female Silver Surfer, but it is female Silver Surfer. We all know this.
It's terrible.
Yeah, but she says if you played an exact 60s suit today, everyone would think she was a bit of a doormat. So figuring out how to capture the essence of what she represented to each generation, where the gender politics were different, and embody that today was one of the greatest joys of this. So I like these quotes, while maybe they're not completely damning, right? They bring caution to what you might go and see in this movie and whether or not it's worth it to spend your money to go see it.
I mean, I think for me, the bottom line is we've spent about a decade with this kind of hyper messaging in our movies and TV shows. So we're a little bit gun shy when we hear these quotes thinking, uh-oh, here we go again. Now, I do think that Hollywood is leaving some of this woke nonsense behind. I just watched the Thunderbolts, which was completely woke free from what I can tell and pretty charming. So I think that I think studios are learning their lesson regarding this. But I just think that we've been pummeled by it that every time we see a sign of it, we go, uh-oh, here we go.
Yep.
And I think that's why we may be overreacting to some of these quotes because we're just exhausted by it because we just don't want to see this in movies, you know?
And the thing that bothers me is no one decided to tell Vanessa Kirby where the women's power lied in the 60s, right? It's like
Yeah.
she has
Yeah.
an intimate relationship with one of the smartest, if not the smartest person in the Marvel universe, who happens to be one of the most extremely powerful and respected scientists in the universe, right?
Mm.
And where the women had most of the power in the 60s was in the relationship with the husband, was in these social ties that the family kept. So, where the public showing wasn't this big bravado and strength. She's also a superhero that is going to be a part of a superhero quartet and have one of the leading heroes in the world's ear at all times, right? So it's like instead of playing on that, right, where she has the power, because power dynamics have not changed. You see in so many movies, right? Like take the friggin' movie 300, where it was about the Spartans going to try and do the last stand.
It's a Persian.
Who was Gerard Butler the only person that he took any advice from or any solace from? His wife. And then he, plowed her out in this movie. But that was the only person that he kind of like listened to in that
He went
moment.
off to war.
Well,
No,
yes. But it was, that was the only person that he let his guard down. He was willing to be vulnerable because, he talked about about that moment. And that was the only person that had his ear. Right. And we have seen that consistently throughout movies like this, right? The wife always has the ear of the husband, and the husband honors and respects the wife's opinions in the home and stuff. So they could have played off of that. And instead, they're just not creative. They know nothing about history. And, someone like this, she's like, I get to be a girl boss. And it's like, come on now. Like it is awful. It's terrible.
And the most annoying thing about this, to be honest, though, is because, especially when it comes to this movie, is that Vanessa Kirby looks good as Invisible Woman.
She does.
Looks like Invisible Woman. Quinn looks good as Johnny Storm. The only one that's honestly miscast to me is Pedro Pascal. But generally, the movie aesthetically looks like, okay, there could be something there.
Yeah.
But these quotes, like I said, female Silver Surfer, there's this caution there. And when it comes to wanting to spend money on something, people need a lot more certainty nowadays than what's happening in the lead up to this film.
That's the ultimate point. And someone said that a while ago. It just stuck in my head. When I make, it was some creator was saying, when I make a movie or a TV show now, I'm not just competing against my time slot or what's in theaters now. I'm essentially competing against everything that's ever been made. Because we can watch almost everything now via Roku or streaming or whatever outlet you choose. Yeah. And we're just much more discerning now. You've really got to bowl us over. And listen, Minecraft is a sensation. That's why the movie's doing well. Yeah. Sinners is just a really terrific movie. That's why the word of mouth is going through the roof. And we're almost eager to have excuses not to see something. And while we're all curious about the Fantastic Four and the aesthetic looks good and the cast is mostly rock solid, no pun intended with Mr. Grimm, then we see this and we get, come on, man. Just exhausting.
And I think in general, Disney is under the microscope.
Yes.
With Marvel, Star Wars, and Disney, like their products, they've done it to themselves because they've given us such slop and they've given us such terrible things. And then even with someone like the new Star Wars is coming out, right? They announced that in the Grogu and Mandalorian movie, it's going to be a tie-in to the new Ahsoka. And it's like, stop making me have to watch TV shows or the movies to understand what's going on.
Yep.
And, it was cool. When Marvel movies were still chugging along, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Agent Carter were kind of like mini tie-ins. They had slight tie-ins chronologically to what was going on without needing. You didn't need to watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. to know what's going on in the Avengers. You didn't need to watch vice versa, right? Even never watching a Marvel movie, you could enjoy Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. for what it was. And this whole entire obsession with, if you don't watch Loki, you have no idea why Kang is really that powerful or important. And it's like, no, I don't care about Loki. I don't want to watch Loki fall in love with the female version of himself, which is really weird. And no one, I don't think anyone really thought that one through, that he's just like, I love me so much and I love me more with boobs. Like, stop it. It's bizarre. But it's like, I don't understand this obsession that they are doing, and it has not worked. So the fact that hopefully they stop doing it, hopefully these things were just too far along and they just have to do it and they can fix it. But do you think that Disney, with Marvel and Star Wars, are they going to be able to earn the trust back of the fans, or are we always going to be looking for a reason to tell them to piss off?
I think they've got enough IPs under their belt where they could win us back with really good, consistent content.
Yeah.
I'll be curious to see how people react to Thunderbolts, because I think it's a good film. Not great, but it's good, and not woke and sort of crowd pleasing and funny and charming in all the right ways. Yeah, I think we're a forgiving lot. I mean, listen, we just went out and saw Revenge of the Sith in theaters, and it made
We'll
20
talk about that.
million.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so and that was a malign, trilogy, the prequel trilogy. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think we're okay with coming back. An apology would be nice, but I think the best apology is just making good films that lack that sort of finger wagging lecture.
Yes.
So without giving too much away, with Thunderbolts, are we going first Suicide Squad where they rushed everything and gave you no character development and then you didn't know what was going on and then they killed the coolest member of the Suicide Squad like idiots? Or are we going James Gunn more Suicide Squad where quick enough, good enough development, solid story, interesting? Which one are you leaning to with Thunderbolts?
Definitely the latter.
Okay, that's good.
I've seen some of these characters before. I didn't think they were so indelibly imprinted in my head. But I think it's a kind of film you can walk in more or less fresh and not like you just mentioned before, like you don't need to do your homework per se. I don't want to do my homework. Okay. You can tie it in. It's nice. Yeah. I've seen Black Widow. So I've seen a couple of these characters.
Yeah.
I've seen Red Guardian, but David Harbour is very funny in this movie. And I think you can get that without having any sense of what he did in another film or two.
That's good. That's good. And it's like, as a comic book purist nerd like me, I look at the Thunderbolts and I'm like, there's only one person that's a part of the Thunderbolts in this, like in the original comic. Like, but if they go the route, because even with Guardians, like that was not the Guardians of the comic
Guardians at all.
But they made it into it and they paid homage to them by bringing in some of the older Guardians. So if they could do something similar where, they make you feel good about Bucky being involved as he's one of the Thunderbolts and stuff, and everyone else comes in and feels good. Like that could be lots of fun. That's a movie that I'm seeing some mixed reviews, and I don't know if some of it is, just the, not to be mean because I like some of these guys, but like the grift of, hey, we're gonna be pissy about everything that goes on Marvel, DC, and we're gonna poo-poo it, and then if it proves us wrong, then we'll be nice because it's like. Again, it's coming up with the goodwill. Why should we trust you type of thing, right? And I understand it, but I don't know. I'm a wait and see type of guy. But you saying that it's pretty good makes me potentially want to go out there and watch it because, like I said, I like your reviews. Yeah, and, I trust what you have to say because I think you're pretty discerning and you don't let your politics get in the way of your reviews either. Yeah,
I try not to, and it's a good point. I mean, listen, you get more clicks and more attention if you hate on things of a certain nature. I expected I was going to just loathe Snow White. I thought it was okay. It was
might be the highest praise it's gotten from anybody.
Even liberal critics hated it, but I thought I accepted the fact that they departed so aggressively from the origin story. Like, okay, that's this movie. That's their plan, and as long as it's done in a reasonable way, I can't really give it too many points against it because that's just the path they took, just because they didn't agree with what I wanted to do. What I thought was funny about Snow White is that it's a love story, and the creators of this story were so angry about that and so unwilling to let that just happen. By God, let them kiss, let them fall in love. And it's there, but it's almost like, oh, I'm sorry they kissed. Oh, I'm sorry they have feelings for each other. Because they just had to have her as a girl boss.
And that song was like the most forced song ever about like them falling in love. And like the thing is, like, out of all the songs, that might have been like the weakest one, I think. And again, like I said, Rachel Zegler is going to have a great career on Broadway. She should just not be on screen for another 5 years. Like, honestly, like my biggest critique of her is that she's not a very good actress yet. Like her singing's great. I actually liked her singing in Spellbound, which I thought was a decent step. For what are the Skydances? Who does that? That's
Skydance.
John Lasseter's new crew that he's doing there. And I thought that was a decent step. It was better than Luck. You feel that Disney charm that John Lasseter brought is just not there yet in terms of being a good group, but they're getting better. But her singing was really strong in Spellbound, and that kind of helped it a lot. But yeah, again, I can look past actors, actresses, people in Hollywood kind of disagree with me because they have forever.
Yeah.
I've been a conservative my whole life, and I've seen, but it used to be subtle jab and tell a good story.
Mhm.
Now it is shitty story, giant jab at everything I believe in. And it's like,
Mhm.
okay, 50% of your audience is gone, dude. Like,
Yeah.
and it is bizarre. So let's talk about Sinners. You talked about how
Oh,
the
do you
word
want to
of
get
mouth has
some
been
comments
good.
first?
Oh,
We've
we
got
want to get
a
David.
bunch
Go
from
ahead,
by Nate.
go ahead,
Yeah,
get some comments.
just real quick, just to talk about some of these. Jimmy Dore is a king just for having Kurt Metzger on his show. Yes, I can agree with that.
Yes.
And he's saying no way Pedro has sunk that movie. Now, Nate, I don't like Pedro either, but I don't think he's necessarily sunk it.
I think it's not Pedro himself. I think the fatigue
Of
of Pedro
Pedro
Pascal is
could
going
be a
to
part
make
of it.
people just
Yeah.
not want to go because we have that, right? Where
Mhm.
I think, actors and actresses work hard for about 3-4 years, put out a bunch of movies, and then they take a vacation. It's kind of been the norm. But I think sometimes, like, Pedro's been working now for 6 years. Like, go on
Mhm.
vacation for 4. Like, go away for a little while. And I
Yeah.
think that, like, I don't think Pedro Pascal is necessarily a great actor or a bad actor. I just think he is a decent actor that they are overplaying their hand with.
Yeah, I don't blame him either when you strike when the iron's hot.
Yeah.
Yes.
Actors, never know what their next gig is. I remember talking to William H. Macy years ago, who's at the time, but probably still just this character actor who
He's
works
so
all the
good.
time.
Mhm.
He's so good. And he was acting in our conversation like he was deathly afraid that he'd never work again.
And
So
he's
there's
one
a
of the
real
he's that John
insecurity.
Malkovich level actor where he is amazing and
Mhm.
he's gonna get his due later than he
Mhm.
should.
Mhm.
I put him up there with like Steve Buscemi and like
Oh,
all
yeah.
those type of actors, Paul Giamatti,
Mhm.
that they are incredible and they never truly Paul Giamatti's gotten more lately, which I love,
Yeah.
but they never truly get the respect they deserve where they're up here, but they're kind of treated as the next tier and they
Mhm.
don't belong there. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Dave. Sorry.
Yeah, and you're good. He said if you think Pedro's playing ball after attacking JK, big doubt, and that is true. Pedro is not. He is one of those that seems to be off the leash completely. They can't really rein him in at all.
And he is going to screw up the whole entire case for Disney
Mhm.
with Gina Carano because he just won't shut the fuck up. And it
Mhm.
helps Gina so much. And
Mhm.
I'm rooting for Gina
Yeah.
100% in this. But keep going, Pedro. Keep going. Everybody, Bill Burr, you keep saying dumb stuff too. Even
Yeah.
though you defended her at the time, you're being a moron now. So keep talking more about
Yeah.
Luigi.
Mhm.
Keep it up, please,
Yeah.
because it only helps Gina's case.
By the way, I met Gina Carano on the set of Terror in the Prairie, and I've
Oh, that's
never met a kinder, sweeter, gentler celebrity. She was an absolute doll, just a wonderful person. So
We had Drunk 3PO on here too, and he said amazing things about her as well. And
Mhm.
we know like him and
yeah.
her and Drunk 3PO are pretty close. And she just seems like an awesome person. She's obviously a bucket list person for this show.
Yeah. You're saying Big Sad. I love Fantastic Four. Heard Franklin Richards is supposed to be born too. Yeah, I saw that was a name being thrown out, possibly being born. I'm not surprised that
Just
he
make
would be.
Franklin Richards and Century fight.
And I
Apparently,
saved
because
this
Century's big
for
bad.
one. Colton said, "Keep it up, guys." Thank you,
Yes,
Colton.
thank you,
And
Bolt.
I want to save this because this has
Yes,
been
let's do it.
pretty big recently. Said, "Bring up hashtag super shit." I'm pretty sure you've seen this, Christian, but this is a leak that came out.
Yes.
It's a rumor now. Gary from Nerdrotic has basically confirmed it, and he's actually been pretty correct on a lot of these things from his sources in there. So if this is correct, this is not good for the Superman movie. But the rumor is that Superman gets attacked by online trolls using the hashtag super shit. But it actually gets to him in some
Oh,
manner. He like
no.
complains about it a little bit. Now I don't
No.
know how in depth that is, but honestly, part of what makes it worse for me is that the online trolls are actually a bunch of mutant monkeys that Lex Luthor is using to get to Superman to like annoy him and get under his skin.
Quickly, I'll couch it as this. I will couch it as this real quick. If this is like a trying moment where Superman's feeling the pressure and something's gone wrong or something, and it's just like montaged that happens, and then we find out later it was it was Lex Luthor, maybe. But if this is a big plot line, then all the goodwill from one of the better hype ups that we've seen in a long time, where everyone was glued to that freaking poster and that reveal, and it actually looked decent from the trailer. If they fumble it this bad, then I hope everything James Gunn in DC falls apart. And it's going to.
It's
I
scary.
hope that isn't true.
I do too. because I want a good Superman movie.
Mm.
I want a good Superman movie.
Yeah. And by the way, it reminds me of in the 2016 Lady Ghostbusters. I think there was a scene where they were all huddled around a computer and they were
Yes.
they're angry trolls, and it just
I wouldn't know. I did not.
Yeah, I ended up seeing it. I
did
ended up
not see
seeing that at one point. And wasn't that because then Bill Murray come in as like a journalist or something like that as well, and then he gets knocked out a fucking window and dies. That movie was terrible.
that was Bill Murray's worst performance in all of
Yeah.
his career.
Oh yeah.
And you could tell he was dying inside. He did not
Phoning
want
it
to be
in.
there.
Yeah. And Colton, real quick, I don't care if the movie's old, but thoughts on Top Gun Maverick? I loved it. It
Good movie.
brought back a moment of just enjoying action.
Mhm.
Honestly, it's even with like just the shots of planes flying, like just those shots in them themselves were like, oh, this is awesome. It just brought out like the kid in me in
Yeah.
some ways.
Yeah, I think that movie did everything right. And that's rare for me to say.
Mhm.
It did nostalgia right. It brought Iceman back in a perfect way.
Yeah,
It had its own original story.
Yep.
It showed the growth of the character, the
Mhm.
bond between Tom Cruise and Miles Teller's character, the history. I thought it was even better than the original. I mean, the original is a classic, but
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree.
And, and it was a legitimately good popcorn flick, which is what the original was,
Yes,
right? Just a
yes.
great, like a high level, not your throwaway popcorn, but a memorable high level. Now, if you give me a really good remake of Days of Thunder, Tom Cruise is the greatest actor of all time. Because Days of Thunder is an underrated movie, damn it. One of his better ones. But yeah, no, when it comes to Superman 2,
Mhm.
it's one of those things where, like Dave said, I want it to be good. It looked like it had the chance to be good. And I'm hoping that this is also one of those things where, I'll say our side, but our side gets a hold of this, gets on it enough that James Gunn looks at this and goes, fuck.
I don't
Okay,
think
guys, we got to cut
I don't
this.
think
We
he
got to
can.
get this out of here. This can't, I think because we've seen it, right? We saw with Sonic the Hedgehog. They went back. It
Mhm.
screwed them, right? And I think if James Gunn's smart, he'll look at initially all the goodwill he got from everyone when it came to how it came up. Even people that maybe were slightly disappointed acknowledge that the buildup to that poster, to that trailer we haven't seen that for a movie in a really long time with how they captured the internet. Significantly better than what they friggin' did with the new Avengers, right? Empty chair for 8 to 7 hours, like jerk offs, whatever it was. But that buildup was good. And I'm hoping he sees the backlash to this rumor. And if it's true, he's like, either cut it or dumb it down. Like, let's not make this a factor. Let's not screw this movie up because there's a whole lot of goodwill going into Soups right now. Christian, is that something you're feeling in the critic space that Soups, they want Soups to be good and there's a positive vibes about it?
Yeah, I mean, I get that general sense. I think we're all hopeful for it.
Mhm.
It's so interesting. The art of the pre-release hype, the momentum,
Yeah.
Mhm.
the build up is really tricky. I mean, I think the trailer is all important. I think
100%.
not putting your foot in your mouth is all important. I think saying all the right things matters. I think showing real loyalty to the source material, whatever it is, that matters as well. But I remember a few months ago, I rewatched Superman with Christopher Reeve, and it really is marvelous. Like the fact that
Yeah.
they had the romance, they had the
Mhm.
comedy,
Mhm.
they had the epic nature of the superhero was larger than life.
Mhm.
It got so much right. It's really rare to kind of nail it with that much success and have it succeed decades later.
Yeah.
So they've got big shoes to fill. I'm not as sold on James Gunn as other people. I think he's got
Fair.
some talent.
Yeah.
He can do some good things. He can, do lesser stuff. I'm kind of folding my arms, wait and see. But yeah, it'd be wonderful. It's a great movie. I would love it.
Yeah.
So Nate brings up over here. I was excited for Superman. Guy Gardner looked so good. And in that trailer, there were a lot of good villains that maybe you're a Soups fan, you're noticing like, whoa, they're there. I'm
Mhm.
hoping it's not too much. I'm hoping it doesn't become a member berry salad.
Yeah.
But I mean, with James Gunn, I like James Gunn generally. I think he's pretty good. I think for the most part, he has a good pulse on comic books. I think better than what we give, Kevin Feige credit for, and better than when even Jon Favreau went off the friggin' deep end, even though he did when it comes to like comic books and things like that.
Mhm.
I feel like James Gunn at least does his best to, if it's not sticking directly to the source material, make it feel like it. So it gives me hope. Now, can he handle big blockbusters when they're put to him? Maybe not, right? Because
That's
Guardians
the
of the
big
Galaxy was
question,
not meant to
yeah.
be a giant blockbuster. It was just meant to
Mhm.
be a Marvel movie. He saved Suicide Squad, but Suicide Squad, it was easy to top that first one, right? So it's like we're giving him credit, and that's at a time where DC was putting out slop after slop. Like Justice League sucked. And I think, everyone's like, the director's cut of Justice League.
Okay,
if you have to make a director's cut in order to make your movie good, then it's not a good movie. And even a director's cut, well, like the Snyder cut, everyone's like, it's great. I'm like, it was okay. I still got bored very quick. So it's like,
it didn't make you want to watch Rebel Moon?
Oh my God. No, it did not. But it's like one of those things. Like we'll see what James Gunn could do when he is making a flagship movie, because this is, and the fact too that I don't give him many credit. Ezra Miller is not out in the street. Okay, Ezra Miller is a bad person. Ezra Miller kidnapped a person. He was, he's a PDF file in a lot of ways, accused of, right? We accused, accusations, potential, but I don't give a shit that Ezra Miller's weird, or it's Hollywood. They're all friggin' weird, but he's just generally not a good person. And to put him as the center of your universe potentially and not kick him out to the curb shows a little bit of cowardice on his part, right? Because I think there's some fear there to do it, but also just, I don't know, maybe they're okay with it. Like, I can't get down with that. I can't support anything that he's a part of. Ezra Miller is just a terrible human. So,
and he's out of the picture right now. I haven't heard a thing about him since Flash bombed.
I think his name is gone now. I think his name is basically gone. But let's move on to Sinners. Let's move on to something that we can actually enjoy, something that I want to see, because it's actually done pretty damn good. And like you brought up earlier, Christian, especially because of word of mouth, people were saying, guys, go see this movie, which you don't hear often nowadays. So when you hear that in person, you're like, okay, I actually have to go to the movies now. So you actually did see this, Christian. Alex and I haven't. What are your thoughts on the movie, one, and what are your thoughts on how it's doing so far in the box office and word of mouth?
I thought it was mostly terrific. It's it's the ultimate slow burn when it comes to horror, because the horror elements are kind of backloaded, but it's just a character study. It's looking at these different figures. It's setting the time and the place. The music is outstanding. The supporting players are strong. Michael B. Jordan always brings it. Yeah. And then it becomes a vampire film. And it's been compared very superficially to From Dusk Till Dawn. And I see that, but wildly different movies. But this is a very well crafted movie where the acting is off the charts good, and the atmosphere and the music. And even, I'm a horror junkie, the horror beats aren't the typical jump scares. It's not what you've seen before. It's fresh. It's original. Ryan Coogler is a very talented director, and I'm so glad he's working at this high level. And I'm delighted that people have seen it, that they're recommending it, that the word of mouth is through the roof. By the way, if I may kind of commandeer the show for one nanosecond.
Yeah, go for it.
Someone in the comments mentioned that the ending of the Halloween franchise.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up.
Colin,
Yes. It was terrible.
Dude.
And, Jamie Lee Curtis should have used her star power and said, wait a minute. This is the wrong movie, the wrong ending. What are you doing to my character? And to my
This is her franchise. Other than Michael Myers, it's her franchise. That's who it is.
Yeah.
I didn't see how it was. Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends, right? I didn't see Kills because I didn't care about it at that point. I was like, okay, I'm done with Halloween as a franchise.
Didn't miss much.
The same guy commenting, Colton told me watch Halloween Ends because it pissed him off and he wanted me to be angry as well. I'm like, okay.
Colton's one of our good friends. So.
I watched it and it did piss me off. And the thing is, even when a slasher is not very good, you want it to at least have good kills. And I think there was one in that movie. Yeah. So all of it is disappointing, and all of it is just an absolute farce to the Halloween franchise. Which, funny enough, if you actually just made it an anthology at this point without Michael Myers, people would actually probably like it more, just like they kind of wanted to do in the first place.
Yeah.
But no, instead they just absolutely destroyed Michael and Jamie Lee Curtis as well with that franchise.
By the way, I just did an interview for my podcast with the author of a new book, The Rambo Report.
And bring that back up real quick. Oh, throw that up there real quick.
Yeah. And one of the things that I liked about the book so much is that Stallone really cared about the character and the franchise, and he threw his weight around. And at times he wasn't nice. He might have thrown some sharp elbows.
And who's that by? Where can they get it from?
Nat Sagaloff is a really talented writer.
Okay, cool.
But what it reminded me is like he cared enough about the franchise to steer it in the direction he thought was the best.
Yeah.
And I'd love to see like a Jamie Lee Curtis say, "Hey, wait a minute. You basically she's barely in the second movie in the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And in the third movie, they focus on this new serial killer that no one cares about.
Yep.
I mean, I would have loved for her to say, "This, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
I am the star of this franchise. Can we go back to the drawing board? Can we do something to fix this?" And
Yeah.
who knows what happened behind the scenes? And maybe she didn't have the clout. Maybe she didn't want to. Who
I don't know
knows?
if she cared that much.
But that'll be like Arnold sitting there and letting Terminator just completely go. But it was like
Yes,
Arnold
yeah.
at least made sure that all the Terminators, even like the bad ones, right? Like Terminator Genesis
Mhm.
wasn't fantastic. And Arnold, he wasn't involved in that, right? Which is
There's
why
something he was involved
I
in,
think he
for
made
sure.
well, I think he made a cameo in Genesis, right? Like his like younger self, I think, came out there at one point or something in that one, whatever it was. But it was like the ones he was fully involved in were great because he made sure that it stayed that way, right? Caveat Ty saying, what about the last Rambo, Last Blood? I actually thought even the last Rambo wasn't bad. The only thing, the bad part about the last Rambo was he killed 750,000 people. And it was like I think in the first two, you maybe have like 10 to 15 kills in the first two Rambos. So it became just like a big murder spree, but it's kind of like, it was in a way, I think they almost had to do it that way, right? Because I don't think anyone would sign on, even though we love the first two Rambos, no one would sign on for that type of movie as a new movie. I think it would get panned if it was similar. And, one thing with the horror genre, going back to Sinners a little bit, the issue with horror to me, mainstream horror lately, has been it only relies on massive jump scares. But what we're seeing is a big shift in that, right? Already, because even A Quiet Place was terrifying throughout because of the feel. The jump scares happened, but the whole movie felt that way. There was a tension. And it's something that Alfred Hitchcock got right. It's something that Stephen King early on got right. It's more about the tension and the feeling of realness that it could happen that scared the shit out of everyone more than the jump scares, right? Like there's some of them that are decent with jump scares, but that just became everything about horror. And that's not true horror. Like you need the thriller elements to make the horrors great as well.
Well, it's either that or you're going to go full camp or you're going to go slasher. Like you have to know what you're playing as and make that movie correctly. And I do want to bring up, especially because you're talking about the atmosphere, Alex, not to take it too far off of Sinners, because I do want to talk about that more.
Yeah.
But I don't know, Christian, if you've seen the trailer for Weapons coming out.
No, it just broke and I haven't seen it yet.
Yes. I watched a trailer. I think it looks like it has really good.
Would we get flagged for watching this trailer, do you think?
I do not know, so I do not want to take the risk. But, but I think it has a lot of potential to really be a great horror movie, and I'm very excited for it. I'm a big horror guy myself, so and I'm excited for that. And like I said, playing towards what your movie is. We just had The Substance come out. The Substance did really, really well, but even as a body horror movie, you can enjoy the hell out of that movie because of what it does and how much it enjoys its practical effects, and it's going to show you what it wants to show you.
And happy it got some nods for awards too. Like it deserved some, it was a very well done flick.
Yeah. I think horror's having a moment right now. I think there's a lot of young, good directors. I think you've seen some really excellent films. I'm having a blast with horror at the moment, and because the price point is so much lower, then you get return on your investment. I think Hollywood would be crazy not to lean in.
So how much did the YouTube horror scene really take off? Like, and taking off in the interim between all this, kind of help what's going on now? Because like I know David for like a long while now, you were big on like the small YouTube creators because they created some genuinely good horror, thriller type of things. I don't know how familiar you are, Christian, with a lot of like the YouTube creators, but it kind of held its own and kept horror big. And even what was that one service? I always forget the service. Shudder, I think really helped keep it alive. And
Shudder had a lot of shorts on YouTube, and it eventually came out now to an app and a whole live streaming service where they have something live on, and then you can also watch horror movies. And they had one of their originals was a look-see, and that was a pretty good short. But like you said, horror is having its heyday with the budget it has and with the creativity you can have in horror. You can actually make an original thing that people will be interested to see very quickly off a trailer. And even when it's not original, when it's a sequel, like 28 years later, trailer is absolutely fantastic. The pre-release is great. So unless they ruin it on the next couple of times that they have a chance, but that trailer was amazing. So horror has every chance to be as good as it wants to be
Yeah.
with not that much of a budget.
Yeah.
So
Look at the
back to
Terrifier films. They were first on.
Oh my
Exactly.
god. So back to Sinners. Is this going to be a lesson for Hollywood though on just, Michael B. Jordan is just a good actor, right?
Yeah.
He is a very good actor. He's very versatile, right? We're seeing he can do so much. But when it came to this film, they promote it. They, basically asked everyone to see it. There was no dumb shit, like none. And it ends up being a good movie. I think it's going to do very well. Broke even already. I think it's going to make a lot of money. Um, in some ways, like I think, you think Hollywood's learning its lesson in, I think some of these slot movies we're seeing have been in pre-production for so long they have no choice but to put them out. But do you feel like they're going to start making movies in more of the way of what we're seeing with like Sinners and some of the other good movies that we've seen, or are we still going to get our good share of woke nonsense because that's just the mold of Hollywood?
I think woke is fading, but probably won't go away for a long time. But I
Okay.
think that, Sinners is not easy. I mean, Ryan Coogler is not a cookie cutter dime a
Yeah.
dozen director. He's really
Mhm.
talented.
Yeah.
And there are a handful of really talented directors, Tarantino and Scorsese, and
Yep.
I'd say Jordan Peele before Nope. I despise Nope, but I think that his other films are quite good.
One.
No, so I mean, I think it's a hard movie to kind of copy. Listen, and there have been other original films that have just failed miserably. Mickey 17, Alto Nights, Black Bag. I haven't seen Black
Mhm.
Bag, but that was, good cast, good director, good reviews.
Yeah.
It didn't bomb, but it's not really a hit per se. It's a hard formula to replicate. It's like,
100%.
make another Tarantino movie. Well, we saw all those bad Tarantino movies, and they were terrible.
Mhm.
They're not made by Quentin Tarantino.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I think it's complicated, but you give the creators enough rope and they can make something pretty special. So maybe that's a
Well,
lesson.
it's like Hollywood for the recent years have decided to go against risk completely.
100%.
For the most part, they're extremely risk adverse when they used to not be as risk adverse.
Well, they all went Judd Apatow, where Apatow was a very good. Well, here's the thing: I'm going to criticize him because he was really good at making kind of the raunchy but a little more sophisticated comedy with, and then he has made some really bad, boring comedies. Like This Is 40 is one of the worst, slowest comedies of all time, and it had some really funny people in it too, good actors and actresses, and it was just, there's some. It's just I think they start to play it safe sometimes,
Mhm.
and Dave, we've talked about this before. We'll say it again. Hollywood will come back when they start making the good, cheesy, raunchy teen comedy again. When they make one that
Comedies, some
like
more
old
rom-coms.
school, like Will Ferrell is such a product of so many of them, and now he's just a dumbass. But it's like all these movies that were good, and I bring up the last one that was like that was called Blockers, and it was a movie about parents trying to stop the exact style movies that we want to see, right? The plots of those movies. So it's like when they start making those types of movies, when we see a National Lampoon style movie come out again and all those types of things, I think that's when we'll know Hollywood's kind of healed, right? Where they're willing to go and make fun of stereotypes again. And we know they're just making fun of them.
Yeah.
No one needs to be offended, right? And I think there is some talent still there, right? Like you put that type of movie in front of Kristen Wiig, I feel like would do it. She's just a funny comedian. She will go and make fun of women and everything and push the ropes. Like I think they have those actors and actresses there. They're just so unwilling to use them.
There's a new movie coming soon with Theo Vaughn and David Spade. I think it's independently produced.
That'd be fantastic.
Feels like something that we might really long for. And I just saw Nick Swardsden in he played in Denver here, comedy routine, and he said he's working on a project that sort of harkens back to the old school comedies. So I think it might be coming. We'll have to wait and see, but I hope so.
Yeah,
I mean, I have no hope for Happy Gilmore 2. I really don't. I feel like we're just going to get like a ton of member berries. Like, remember when this happened in Happy Gilmore? Isn't this still funny? Oh, look, it's Drew Carey getting into a fight now instead of Bob Barker. Isn't this great? Like,
so the David Spade and Theo Vaughn movie is called Bus Boys, which they wrote and are self-financing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's interesting because like David Spade, I mean, his podcast with Dana Carvey is really funny, right? And I feel like, I don't know if David Spade is a conservative, but it feels like he's been kind of blackballed himself, right? Like it feels like, and I don't know if he's an open conservative or not, Dana Carvey or anything, but it feels like for whatever reason, David Spade was really good. And I think like one of my favorite things David Spade did was when he replaced what's his name? The guy that passed away from Eight Simple Rules. What he was a great
Oh,
actor.
John Ritter.
John Ritter.
Yes,
When
yes.
he came in and replaced John Ritter, not as the father, but just as like the main big male lead, and kind of kept that show afloat when it should have went downhill, right? Once John Ritter was gone, it should have been done, but they kept it up, I think, for 3 or 4 more seasons after that. And it was because David Spade really held it in a lot of ways. And there were good actors and actresses there. Obviously, Kaylee Cuoco is fun to look at and a decent actress, but it's it's one of those things where it's weird that he's been blackballed, and I'm happy to see he's coming back. And Theo Von is obviously funny. He's really good on his show and things like that. So
Yeah, I think Spade and also Dana Carvey, I don't even know if they're conservatives per se, but I think they look at the comedy landscape and I think they're aghast at what's going on. And I think they don't like those rules. They want to just kind of be free.
you see so many comics going back on the road and doing shows again because I think they want to be able to tell those types of jokes again.
Yeah. I was
Like,
gonna
they
say,
miss it.
Alex knows I'm a fan of Master in Disguise.
Yeah, you love that
Dana
movie.
Carvey cannot make that movie. I mean, he can. We've seen it with a bunch of people. Howard Stern, what's his name that played Borat. But we cannot make
Sacha
that
Baron
movie and
Cohen.
just completely turn heel on that and decide no one else can make those types of things. No, you got like you said, seeing the landscape, be like, we actually want to tell jokes still.
Well, I mean, you can. Look at Howard Stern. Howard Stern's a piece of garbage.
No, I know.
Like,
I'm
the guy
saying
is terrible.
they obviously can, but I'd rather him not.
Nate G saying Sam Hyde needs to make the next big comedy. Sam Hyde needs to make like a Sacha Baron Cohen-esque one where he just goes after celebrities and like fight me and like just does that for 3 hours.
Sam is an interesting individual. He can make a decent comedy thing if he did what he did to iDubbbz to like people. But
oh my god.
Also another question from Nate here. Have you seen Until Dawn, Christian?
No, I haven't. There was a screening that was like popped up out of nowhere last week, and I just missed it. I'm curious about it though.
As someone who has played the game, Nate, I don't know if you've played it, but as someone who has played the game, the movie kind of pisses me off. I understand why they're doing what they're doing for the movie, but I also feel like the movie should have just decided on a storyline and then did it from there instead of doing this looping nonsense. Because I don't know if you know, Christian, Until Dawn is just it's a story-based game where the choices you make matter and the choices you make last. So if you make the wrong choice, someone could die and then they're gone for the rest of the game. But you could also replay it and, try to keep everyone alive. I'd rather them not do Happy Death Day as Until Dawn and decide to just make an Until Dawn movie that has the horror elements that the game had. And you can kill people off in a satisfying manner. Like, I don't understand why they're looping it. But the game was fantastic, and that's why it got this type of movie. And I'm annoyed that they're decide to go with this idea, which I feel is kind of a cop-out to try to write it as some kind of way that makes people be like, whoa, that's kind of cool, instead of actually just making it a good movie.
Apparently, they're going to make an Expedition 33 movie already.
I saw that, which is weird.
Like, popped off recently, and it's doing well on the Steam charts. I think it has like consistently like 50 to 60,000 players, like doing really well. But it just came out like, was it 2 weeks ago?
It feels like a plant at that point.
It feels like a plant, and apparently and it was like, I think Variety had a story too, and I know Variety is a rag at this point, but they still have some good scoops on what's going on. So it's like, if they're already doing that, like, it's such a weird spot, and it kind of will bring us into our next topic though, where Hollywood, it doesn't seem like they know what to do. They know how to be creative anymore. They're doing so many reboots, so many remakes of everything. From what the pulse that you have on there as a critic, are we going, like, obviously Sinners is in the right direction, right? An original, beautiful, plays on a good trope of vampires, horror, like, awesome. Outside of horror with the originality, because it seems like that's where we're getting it from, are you seeing any originality coming down the pike with some like action or some of the movies that have typically carried us?
It's hard to say. Listen, I think a lot of the remakes and reboots is our fault because we don't always support original stories.
This is true.
And we do lean on, listen, I saw Superman 4, I've got to see Superman 5. We have that sort of mentality. We feel like a completist mindset. So I blame some of it on us. What I think the good thing that's happening right now is that the technological barriers keep getting lower and lower, and the costs keep getting lower and lower.
Yes.
And that just empowers young, hungry filmmakers to do something special, unique, and different. So that may be where you get pressure on Hollywood to kind of break through and do something unique and novel. Yeah, there's just so many voices out there. I'm on X way too much, and so many funny people on X, like legitimately
Yeah.
funny people. I'm
Yeah.
thinking I could watch a comedy tomorrow and it won't be nearly as funny as me scrolling through X on any given day. So I think the talent is out there. So it's just a matter of kind of getting them the chance to say what they want to say and do what they want to do. And listen, Hollywood is in big trouble. There's so much change. LA film production is just going down, down, down. The
Mhm.
streamers aren't making the money they thought.
Nope.
The death of the movie star is all too real.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they're going to have to innovate at some point along the way.
Mhm.
They're in trouble. So I'll split
Very
it that
much
way.
so.
So you're also seeing like different places becoming kind of meccas for movies, right? It's not just go to Hollywood. Like studios are moving around
South
the country to
Korea.
different places.
Mhm.
And honestly, like I credit Twitter for
Hmm.
kind of the death of the a Hollywood star and the star in general, right? Because before it was they were untouchable. I didn't know much about them besides their movies,
Mhm.
maybe a few interviews, and then if they got into a scandal, right? Like that's all you really knew.
Yeah.
Now with Twitter and social media as a large, but Twitter really started it because the coolest thing about Twitter was, me being me without a podcast, seeing Christian Toto, a film critic I like, I
Mhm.
could maybe tweet at Christian and be like, hey, Christian, you see this movie? It looks awesome. And then it would be awesome. It would make my day if Christian tweeted back at me and said, hey, on my list. Thanks for asking. Like that
Yeah.
was such a highlight of Twitter to be able to interact with people that you thought were untouchable, right? Like, and you certainly had one of those jobs, Christian, as a film critic, where it's like we look up to you to people like that, like people that get the critic scores on Rotten Tomatoes, and Siskel and Ebert, who didn't know about them, right? The thumbs up thing was massive as they're sitting in the theaters. They made
Mm.
shows out of that. So I credit social media as the death because we're seeing them as just people now, and that's such a massive, massive blow
Yep.
to the persona and the pizzazz, right? That they used to carry. Where I think it may be almost impossible to get a real action star now
Mhm.
because we never knew Tom Cruise was like 4'3", right? until you
Or
found
four. Come on.
until like social media and stuff pops up, and it's like
Mm.
people will actually tweet him like, hey, Tom Cruise is really not a big guy. Like he stood next to Peter Dinklage and he almost had to use a chair. Like it was really, it's sorry, Tom. But it's I think that really hurt, celebrities, athletes, everything, because now we see they have flaws, right? Now we see that they have issues and they're not these people that they're not the heroes. They're not heroes anymore. They used to be heroes, used to aspire to be like them. Now you just realize, okay, most of them they're kind of dumb, right? Like they're not that smart. They're not that great. They're good at pretending to be somebody and they entertain us, but not okay, whatever. Like how is Hollywood like obviously not handling it well, but it's like, have you ever talked to any celebrities and movie stars about kind of social media and their presence and how much they want to or should use it, shouldn't use it, things like that?
I've talked to comedians about it a lot. I don't think I've talked to more traditional actors about it.
Mhm.
But, I think you hit on some really good points. I remember years ago that Robert De Niro really didn't give interviews per se. Matter of fact, GQ magazine wrote a whole story about how hard it is to interview Robert De Niro. That was the whole story. Like they had to write something, and he just wasn't helping them. I actually met De Niro at a party 20 years ago, or maybe a little more, and he like politely declined to talk to me.
Mhm.
And now he doesn't shut up. And he's a moron.
Yep.
And as great an actor as he is, and I think he's still a great actor,
Yep.
his thoughts on politics and culture are just infantile. And you can't help but think a little bit less of him. Every actor is trying to promote their work, and I don't blame them. And
Yes.
they're on Hot Ones eating the wings, and they're on
Mhm.
Instagram and stuff. It makes them less special. Like you said, years ago, Jack Nicholson wasn't on every talk show. He wasn't being interviewed constantly.
They went on the late night shows, and
Yeah.
that was the big thing. And that's
Yeah.
what made the late night shows important because you wanted to watch Conan or your favorite late night show because they
Yeah.
would have your celebrity on and you could maybe hear and watch that trailer. Like it was important.
And then when the Oscars came along, there's Jack in the front row
Yep.
Yeah.
doing the wave, whatever he's doing. Like it was special.
Yeah.
That's all gone. And that's not
Mystique.
really the actor's fault. It's the actor's fault when they say dumb things and they get into scandals and they insult the audience. That's their fault.
Mhm.
But it's just a different system. So now the stars are IPs. It's Minecraft. It's Avengers.
Yep.
It's they're going to remake Miami Vice, which, I mean, today's 20 something. Do they know what that is?
No one knows what Miami Vice
No.
is. You can ask anyone,
No.
even my age, and they won't know what Miami Vice is.
You know, neon jackets and the 5 o'clock shadow. That's it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how desperate they are to get this sort of mojo going. So they're going to reboot Superman a million times. They're going to reboot Fantastic Four a million times because that's the star. It's not Pedro Pascal. He's just a star in a movie. He's not the star. He's not the draw.
Yeah. And, you know, we talked about a little while ago, David, you like that Looney Tunes movie a lot, right? And it's
Yes,
like Warner
Eddie or-
Brother
Yeah.
has dropped the bag with Looney Tunes because I have 2 daughters, you know, they're 4 and 7. They have no idea what Looney Tunes is. They don't know who Bugs Bunny is. And it's like, then they drop a movie, which I guess they never wanted to make if it wasn't for catch up picking them up. Like they wouldn't have made it. But it's like, they've done such a terrible job. And Looney Tunes was like the biggest thing in the late 90s and stuff like that. Taz was in everything. I mean, like he was always like, they did like the gangster Looney Tunes things, like, but they were big and they just let that go. And it's like you're talking about with the IPs, right? Warner Brother missed a golden opportunity with having an IP that was golden and now bringing it to the forefront. And yeah, like you said, it's all IPs. There's very few stars that could do, like Robert Downey might be one of the last ones that could do that. Whereas Robert Downey's in the movie, I'm very interested. Tom Cruise, Will Smith had that before I found out Will Smith's like a quarter of a man. Like it's like some actors and actresses had that, and I think it's more like the older ones, like Charlize Theron's in something. Okay, I'll give a shot for Charlize Theron. I like Charlize, Nicole Kidman, like, but it's like these newer actors and actresses, like they have no chance. Like when you hear Zendaya's in it, it's like, okay, Zendaya's in everything. When you hear Tom Holland, and I actually like Tom Holland, but I don't care, you know, if Tom Holland's in like another movie that's not attached to a big IP, right? Like, and it's going to take someone special to kind of bring this back. And I have not found that, you know, Sydney Sweeney knows who she is. I think Sydney Sweeney's close to it. Like she knows, like, okay, she's a draw. She's going to do the Outrun movie, right? People are going to go see Outrun because Sydney Sweeney's hot, right? And she knows it. And she knows it, and she's not trying to be something she's not. So she might be the closest thing we have now to like a legit celebrity that has a mystique about her that people like. And it's so, you know, I don't feel bad for them because they make millions of dollars. So I can't say I feel bad for any of them, even for their shitty movies. They make a ton of money, but it is such a weird place right now. Like we are in a bizarre place in terms of entertainment.
Well,
And I think that some actors even downplay their beauty. I mean, I feel like Brad Pitt often is like trying to make himself look ugly, even though he's a good-looking guy.
Yeah.
And yet, when you saw Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Quentin Tarantino said, "You know what? I've got a good-looking actor. I'm going to put him on the roof of this building. He's going to have no shirt. Then I'm going to have Margot Robbie looking spectacular because she is beautiful." I almost think that, and even in horror movies, there used to be like the hot chicks.
Yes.
And they might be naked.
Usually the final girl is
it's a trope. But
well, you look at Substance, right? Substance, you have 2 smoking hot women, both naked, together at one point. And it's like,
Margaret Qualley is all over the place in that movie. So.
yeah. So it's like they got it, right? Like sex,
acknowledge it, embrace
always
it.
has.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, that's a big problem right now too. And I think also the problem is some of these individuals we're pushing aren't very good looking. Like that doesn't help, right? Like that does not help. Like no one's gonna watch a Melissa McCarthy movie if she's naked, or Amy Schumer, right? Like nobody cares.
They're not Hollywood. They're not Hollywood beautiful, right? Where they're like, okay, you know, I could see them on the street and be like, yeah, I'd like to talk to them, but they're not in the Hollywood. We're like, I don't have a chance with them type of beautiful. But speaking of IPs, since I did want to bring this up because this is awesome, Revenge of the Sith came out for its 20th anniversary, and it made $25.2 million this weekend. And it's not just in the USA, but the movie added another 17 million at the international box office as well, and it's just behind Sinners.
This is so bizarre because you can get it for free on D+.
That's exactly what they say right here.
So, Christian, what do you make of this?
Nostalgia. You know, we all were disappointed by the prequel trilogy. And then we've been reassessing it to a degree, in part because it felt more pure and honest than what we've seen in recent years. I actually think Revenge of the Sith is a pretty good film. I just rewatched it a couple of days ago. Yeah, some of the dialogue is clunky and not all the acting is up to snuff. I don't think George Lucas is a good director of actors, period. But there's a lot to it. It's got heft. It's got some good scenes. The arc of Anakin is such an interesting draw.
Yeah.
Palpatine was spectacular as a villain. So there's meat on the bones there, I think. Music was great. So yeah, it's nostalgia. It's pining for a Star Wars that we just didn't get with the new films, the new TV shows. Yeah, all those things. And I love that they're re-releasing older films. I think it's such a no-brainer. And
Absolutely.
and it also, if you're a grandfather, you could bring your granddaughter or grandson to it, or your dad,
Yep.
you bring your kid to relive these movies, or maybe you just weren't around at the time. You were 5, and we want to see it in the theater. I can't imagine it costs that much to do this. The upside seems huge. And a critical drinker just did a video on the subject. And he's like, all of a sudden, Star Wars seems a little more relevant today than it did yesterday. That's magical.
100%.
And it's incredible because it really shows, and like you said, it is nostalgia, and people wanting the older type of movies, to be quite honest. But it also just speaks to how big Star Wars still is.
It's in spite of Hayden Christensen being a very mediocre actor at best.
Yeah. But just people love Star Wars. They don't right now because there's nothing to love about it right now.
And it's something with me too. I'm so bothered because Darth Maul is easily my favorite Sith. Like, I actually enjoyed the first one because I think Darth Maul is like probably the best Sith of all time, like in terms of on the screen. Because he looks the part. He's the best lightsaber handler we've seen. I mean, like, the Duel of the Fates is incredible, and he shouldn't have lost. I'll always contend that. Like, a friggin' a Jedi Knight does not kill him. I'm sorry. Anyway, but and he doesn't die. But they're making the Maul TV show, and it hurts me because I have no interest. And that's how far it's come. And David knows I've read most of the extended universe books. Like, I really enjoy Star Wars. I got to the point where I actually watched Obi-Wan, and then that was it. That was the straw. Obi-Wan was it. I couldn't watch anymore. Like, considering that they made like 2 really good books about Obi-Wan sitting on Tatooine on a dirt ball, like, it's so bad that I have no interest in watching my favorite Sith be brought to life in a TV show. They did when they brought a bunch of the rebels back in Ahsoka. I didn't care as much as I enjoyed Star Wars Rebels, the TV show. I did not care, knowing that they were going to bring Ezra Bigger in the end and things like that. And Ezra's probably going to have a bigger role to play later. I don't care about any of them. And this is the worst part. Apathy, I think, is the death of the franchise, right? Like, I have no interest, and I wouldn't go see it in theaters because I don't want to give Disney any money.
Like, apathy and Acolyte of the death of the.
Oh man!
If they make an Acolyte season 2, please do, Christian. That would be great for you if they make a season 2. You have so much more content.
I do find it funny though, because, like, honestly, I think it died before Acolyte. Acolyte was them just digging it further. Like,
it was. I think Obi-Wan killed it for so many fans. Like, we were able to look so much. Like, Book of Boba Fett sucked, but we're like, okay. Mandalorian season 3 wasn't great, but it's like, all right, I guess. And then Obi-Wan comes along, and it's like, this is just trash. You tried to feed us Obi-Wan's a shitty storyline with them meeting together and like trying to bring back Vader to make it big. Like, it was just not good. And then Ahsoka sucked on top of that. That's a good question, Caveat. Go ahead, Dave.
They make a lot of money because they charge $25 a ticket. Now that definitely does help.
By the way, I think the Star Wars death began when they made the 3 new films, and there was no connective tissue, no consistency, no thinking.
Does that have to do with the 2 directors though? Because like they had the one director, I think they
got to have a vision,
one,
right?
And then I think it could have been better if it was all, what was it? Ryan Johnson was the first one, and then it was
JJ, then Ryan,
then Ryan, then JJ. If they would have not screwed it, and here's the thing, I'm not a massive JJ guy at all, but the fact that it was obvious that in the 3rd one, JJ was cleaning up a whole bunch of stuff that Ryan did, and you spent half the movie cleaning it up. So then I got half a movie, right? So it was like the first movie felt like A New Hope, and it was kind of like it definitely took a lot from A New Hope, and that was fine because I didn't mind it. I'm like, okay, Rey's okay. Like, they had some decent stuff going on. And then the second movie was like, this is balls. Like, this sucks. And then the third movie was like, this is worse. Like, but they made a huge mistake by switching up, right? And then Rian Johnson's supposed to get a trilogy, and I don't think he's getting his anymore.
That was a long time ago, man.
But apparently it's still in the rumors that they're doing it. They're making the new Rey trilogy, which nobody wants. It's like, Just go read some EU books, hire some of those writers, put them into screenplays, poof. And you have millions upon millions because they're great. But I can rant. David knows I can rant about Star Wars all day. Christian, are you a Star Wars fan in general too?
Yeah, I mean, I was. I mean,
Yeah.
I think The Last Jedi broke me, and I
lot of people.
I enjoyed. I think The Mandalorian was pretty solid, and I thought that Rogue One was a very good film too.
Rogue One was good. Solo sucked, but Rogue One was good.
Yeah, the rest has been Acolyte was as bad as advertised. I missed some of the other shows. Yeah, I mean, I just they made me not care. I mean, it's part of my childhood. It's part of my, every other indie director I've interviewed over the years always says, I always saw Star Wars and I want to become a filmmaker. I mean, I get it. It's magic. And yeah, I'm not interested anymore. I don't know what will bring me back. I mean, professionally, I watch stuff because I have to watch stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't care. I don't know what they could do to fix things now.
Yeah.
Part of what hurts about, go ahead, Dave.
I did want to posit one final question to you, Christian, about movies and entertainment in general. And because I think it really says a lot about where we are, is that the modern audience is always brought up. And when they're making movies for the modern audience, or they're remaking this, but for the modern audience, is that even a real thing? And is that definitely part of the reason why things are going the way that they're going right now, especially in just the way the stories are made?
Well, I mean, I think that, attention spans are shorter. Like if you watch an older film, it's a slower pace.
Yes.
An animated film is going to be much more casual in its presentation. So I think when you say for a modern audience, you got to pick up the pace a little bit, sadly. I just think that's the way we absorb content. But I think this whole thing where we reimagine old stories, it feels very wrong to me, because if it's a classic story, it's a classic story. There's a reason why we still care about Snow White and all these different stories and Star Wars and things, because they had essential truths to them. They spoke to the human condition. They have great arcs. They have all these sort of qualities that are so important to what we want to watch in a movie or TV show. And often that gets left behind. So I think that's one of the problems we're having right now. You think that Disney, with all the resources at their disposal and all these great IPs, would be knocking it out of the park day in and day out, and they just can't get their head straight. So it's hard. And we've seen talented directors and talented screenwriters and talented actors make very bad movies. It happens, and it's just part of the system. Yeah. But there's also a glut of content out there. And every time I feel kind of down about movies, I just recently watched 2 movies I really enjoyed. One was Companion, which has been out a little while now.
And it's pretty good.
Pretty solid.
Yeah.
A good vision. It held to the end. Yeah. And then I saw a little film called Lake George with my favorite character actor, Shea Wiggum. It was just a beautiful two-hander about these people on the run. It had some comedy, a smidge of romance, some thriller. Yeah. Just was the kind of film you discover on streaming and think, wow, that was excellent. I really enjoyed that. Yeah. So there's always going to be good stuff like that. But, the dynamics and the economics change, and that's where things get kind of naughty, and makes us glad that we're doing what we're doing and not in Hollywood. Our careers.
So have you seen the movie King of Kings by Angel Studios? Because
no, I haven't.
I recommend it.
Good things.
I recommend it. I watched it, and I think one of the things that we're seeing now is they are, and I'm surprised Mark Hamill was in it. I'm not gonna lie. I wasn't surprised that he was. I think it was Pontius Pilate, which makes sense. But it was. They're not telling Christian movies like shit anymore. It's a story, and the way that Angel Studios did this one, it's not a spoiler, but it was Charles Dickens obviously wrote the King of Kings book.
Spoil it,
right? Yeah, you can't spoil King of Kings. Anyway, it's been spoiled for millennia. Anyway, good catch, Dave. But they tell it in the story of where the kid, his son, just is in love with King Arthur at that point. And he only wants to hear stories about kings. So Charles Dickens tells him about the King of Kings. And what I liked about it is the pacing. It was meant for kids, obviously. So it hit every single important part of Jesus' life. It aged him quickly, right? You didn't see a young Jesus for too long. It got to 30-year-old Jesus pretty quick. And then it hit all the important parts of Jesus' life. It never lingered. And it just felt like a good story without being super preachy. It was actually well done. I highly recommend, if I don't know where you find the time, because you probably have to watch movies all the time, but if you do, highly, highly, highly recommend King of Kings. It is very well done. I think Angel Studios is doing a really good job of bringing important topics and making them palpable and not just being like, if you don't watch this, you're going to hell. It's like, no, they're doing things the right way. So I highly recommend it.
Yeah, the faith-based genre, and people quibble with that title, but I'll just use it because it's a good
It's a good one.
catch-all.
Yes.
It's matured dramatically in recent years. I mean, it used to be uncomfortable to watch at times. The acting could be amateurish. The budgets were
Mhm.
super low,
Yep.
and now we get better actors. They got better directors. I think it's grown.
Yeah.
It's really kind of evolved in a very positive way, and that's why you're getting movies like that, and also big names in that movie.
Oh
You know,
my
Mitch
God.
Markham,
Great
you know,
names.
Ben Kingsley and Kenneth
Mhm.
Branagh. I mean, they're doing a faith-based movie, and they're not ashamed about it. That's great.
No, it was really nice to see. So Caveat Ties had a question here, and I
Yeah.
think this maybe it was directed at all of us. How do you guys all line up interview guests? So Caveat, I'll tell you this for me, I DM, I ask, and I'm very quickly ready to be ignored. So it's like, that's how I do. And, you have individuals like Christian who are gracious enough to comment back and want to
Uh-huh.
come on, and I'm forever grateful. Now, Christian, you maybe have a little different insight. How do you go about having your guest on Hollywood and Toto, which I recommend everybody go and make sure you go and subscribe to his podcast in audio or on his YouTube. But how do you go about getting them?
Well, it's a different ways. One, I get pitched people sometimes. I just got pitched David Zucker of Airplane fame. I'm going to talk to him
Ooh,
Monday.
Yes,
It's like a bucket list for me. I
that's
can't.
awesome.
That one fell in my lap. Other times I'll
Great.
just be a press release and I'll kind of do a Hail Mary. I'll just reach
Mhm.
out to the people.
Mhm.
I always try to get them when they're in promotional mode because that's when they're most likely to talk to me.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then once in a while, I might DM someone. If there's a comedian that I follow that is following me, I might say, hey, if I can't find their contact information elsewhere, if they don't have like an agent or something like that, I might say, hey, apologize for the DM, but I just want to, I know you've got a new book out. I wanted to help promote it. And how can I chat with you? That kind of a thing. So it's a hodgepodge.
I like it. Yeah, I'm a rustic, so I just ask via DM because I don't have as many connections. But
It
like I
doesn't
said,
hurt, just be polite. That's all.
yeah, and I think I was rather polite, just pretty direct when I asked you. I'm like, hey, my name's Alex. This is what I do. I'd love to have you on as a guest. I try and keep it nice and simple too. I don't like getting too wordy. I found that I
Mhm.
don't like sitting there and being like, Christian Toto, I know your work. I'm a huge fan. Please come on. Because it's like, all right, you're desperate, dude. Get out of here. So, but no, Christian, we appreciate you coming on, man. This
Yeah,
was
my pleasure.
awesome. You're fantastic. I like the work you do. Dave, if you want to throw up his YouTube there real quick.
Yes. Put it on
Everyone,
the share screen, please.
yeah, boom. Is it on?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Hold it.
David, what are you doing here? There we go.
I got it.
Everyone go to the Hollywood and Toto YouTube right there and make sure you subscribe. And also, I can imagine they can find your podcast on anywhere else you find podcasts.
Yep, it's iTunes, it's everywhere. And I also do a 1 to 2 a week. I've been doing short on Hollywood, which is little minute or less little vignettes. Basically, it's news headlines with a bit of snark, a little political jabs here and there. Sometimes kind of get a little silly. My son helps me produce them. He puts up all the little videos and
Awesome.
pop-ups and all the sound effects and things. And I'm having fun with that too.
So I definitely, appreciate you coming on. Everyone definitely go Hollywood and Toto. If you want good opinions, you want opinions that you can trust, in terms of movies and stuff.
Mhm.
There's a lot out there where, not to be mean to anyone, but they're trying to grift. They're automatically negative or automatically positive, depending on what it is. I find Christians pretty much down the line and not afraid to disagree with some of those people either, and respectfully disagree and have his own opinion. So I think it's great. So I appreciate you, Christian, for coming on.
Sure, my pleasure.
For everyone else, I actually have no idea who's coming on the show next week, so we'll figure that out. We'll get someone lined up, or you'll be stuck with just me because David won't be here, and I just might yak at you guys for an hour or two.
Yeah.
But for everyone else, we appreciate wherever you watch from, whether it's Facebook, YouTube, X, Rumble, Kick. Make sure that you give us a like, share, follow, subscribe. If you're listening to this later via podcast form, make sure that you give us a 5-star, leave a review. And overall, everyone, word of mouth is the most important way. So tell them that we're here every Wednesday, 9:00, talking to somebody new, having a good time. And, we're a little bit everywhere. We're politics, we're entertainment, we're sports. We do it all. So everyone, thank you so much for watching. We'll be back. Bye, y'all.